with state deciding on many things, including at one stage in India, if an entrepreneur wanted to invest and create additional capacity, first of all, he has to get permission from the government to invest. Second, if he wanted to import technology, he has to get a second permission. Third, if he wanted to go to the capital market to raise resources for investment, he has to go to the Capital Issues Controller. You could imagine the kind of the stranglehold that the government had in the decisions of the private sector, not to mention the restrictions not only at the central government level, at the state levels. So the World Bank's the Business Environment Index suggests, if you look at it, India is still a horror story, even after the opening, etc. It's not easy to open or close a business in India. So it's natural if the government is doling out discretionary basis resources, then the struggle to get those resources one way or the other, whether through legally or illegally, takes hold. And so the fact that corruption is dominant is related to the economic strategy that India has followed for the last 60 years. Second, now this goes back to both in India and Pakistan. At the time after the partition, when they set up their constitutions, both in India and Pakistan. In India, the constitution writers were all participants in the freedom struggle, and their honesty, their integrity was beyond question. And those people, in writing the constitution, imagine their successors are going to be made of their own caliber, and they didn't allow for the natural deterioration that might happen once the dominant objective of getting independence was over. So over time, the leaders of those leaders, when they passed off the scene, their successors did not have the same integrity, the same the incorruptible character. And so this is naturally over time this happened. In Pakistan, the constitution that Muhammad Ali Jinnah was responsible for writing, that disappeared within 3 years or whatever. It didn't play any role. So again, in India, the constitution has lasted with several amendments, but this feature that the integrity of those who are running the constitutional machinery has not gone. The last thing I want to mention on this corruption scheme, if you read the newspaper, the Indian Supreme Court is now involved in supervising the investigations that are going on into corruption. Now, if you took a long-run perspective, getting the judiciary involved in the investigative processes is undesirable. One, the judges become not only prosecutors and also judges. Second, this encourages judicial activism of a kind that is not desirable. So again, addressing corruption through the way that the Indian Supreme Court is entering into the scene is not desirable from a long-run perspective. And so corruption, again, we have to have a more perspective, deeper perspective, and not simply celebrate. Now the judiciary is involved. This is going to have necessarily the ultimate solution to the corruption problem. It is not. The problems are in the political process and the social processes. Unless you address the political and social processes, this addressing corruption through these means will not have a lasting impact. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. My last point is about security. Now, this again, one curious feature of both India and Pakistan as successor states of the British colonial period, they stuck on to the borders that borderlines that the colonial masters had run, the Durand line between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and the McMahon line between Tibet and China. Now they didn't, they defended and all that. India went to war with China in 1962, or China, whichever way you want to put it. That's the symptom of that. Second, Durand line divided the Pashtuns between Pakistan and Afghanistan. We still have the consequences of that even today. And so once again, the borders, external security problems go way back. Second, the internal security problems, some of which are more recent, there again is the failure to address long-standing grievances of minority groups within India and also within other parts of South Asia. And so once again, now this feature that security problems are of a long-standing nature, and these are not current situation, has to be kept in mind. The China's rise is a major, at least from India's perspective, or if not South Asia in general, other than Pakistan, is an interesting question. Every neighboring country of India is also directly or indirectly neighboring country of China. And China, if you believe in my first slide, when they projected to have 3 times the per capita income by 2040, now China's military strength is higher. China's relationship with Myanmar, China's relationship with Sri Lanka, China's relationship with Pakistan have to be kept in mind. Why, from an Indian perspective, India feels surrounded by the Chinese presence everywhere around its neighborhood. The neighborhood itself is tough, and you have an extra neighborhood entity which is going to be a larger role. So once again, this has to be kept in mind in thinking about security issues in South Asia. Last, diaspora. I have only 2 points to make. Stimulating presentation. Once again, they see silver linings all across, and I see a bit of clouds in this. One is the South Asian diaspora carry still their divisions, which the domestic divisions in each of the countries, even when they go abroad. And so the uniting the South Asian diaspora to play a role for the South Asia as a whole is a difficult problem. At Yale, I was head of the South Asia division for a while, South Asia Studies Council. Now, to get resources for South Asian studies is much more difficult than if you try to find resources for India studies or Pakistan studies. This is a feature of the American situation. So once again, the putting together a diaspora which will work elsewhere in the direction of South Asia as a thing is a difficult proposition. Second, it's a more serious difficulty when diaspora everywhere, whether the Jews in America or the Sikhs in America or Sri Lankans, Tamils elsewhere, they sometimes represent the more extreme parts of their corresponding agencies in their home countries. And so whether politically or militarily, diaspora has been involved directly or indirectly in many of the conflicts of the region. That is well known. Last point, the South Asian governments themselves have involved in using some of these insurgencies as proxies for their own the military. And I don't need to name names there, whether in the Sri Lankan LTTE or the other groups in India from neighboring countries, etc. This feature is also there. Unless the South Asian governments change their mindset about the use of these agencies, that is a problem that will remain. So if we address these problems, all the strengths that Tarun Das and Mr. Kannad talked about will come to the fore, and that will drive the future. Thank you.